This week on Talking Pictures with Neil Rosen, we'll look at the new movie version of the Tony Award-winning musical Dear Evan Hansen, the new dramedy Best Sellers starring Michael Caine and Aubrey Plaza, and the documentary Val, which looks at the life and career of famed actor Val Kilmer. Plus, the recent rock opera Annette, along with my interview with its star, Marion Cotillard. We've got all that and many more movie picks coming up. I'm Neil Rosen. Welcome to Talking Pictures. It's our monthly Critic Roundtable show, where we debate what's worth watching and what's not when it comes to new releases, hidden gems, and Hollywood classics. So along with my panel who are still streaming from home, we have plenty of movies and TV series for you to watch either at home or in movie theaters. Joining me are Perry Nemiroff from Collider. How you doing, Perry?
Hello from LA.
Hello from LA. Hello from New York. Hello from LA. Bill McCuddy from GoldDerby.com. Hi, Bill.
Hello from LI. I'm in Long Island.
Okay. Well, we're all over the place today. And Justine Browning from Entertainment Weekly. Where are you today, Justine?
In a classroom in New York City, hence the whiteboard backdrop.
All right. I'm in New York City too. And let's start out with a look at several new films that are either available in theaters, on demand, or on streaming services, beginning with the new musical, Dear Evan Hansen. Let's take a look at a clip.
Dear Evan Hansen, today is going to be an amazing day, and here's why.
Have you been doing those letters to yourself with Dr. Sherman?
I've been trying to. Have you ever felt like nobody was there?
No one signed your cast. Now we can both pretend we're friends.
I'm sorry about my brother.
Have you ever felt forgotten in the middle of nowhere? I wish everything was different. Wish I was part of something. I wish that anything I said mattered. Have you ever felt like you could disappear?
Perry, tell us about Dear Evan Hansen.
So like the Broadway production, Dear Evan Hansen, the movie stars Tony Award winner Ben Platt in the title role. He's a high school student struggling with anxiety and loneliness who winds up getting caught in a web of lies and basically perpetuating it. This movie, it didn't work for me at all. I know a hot topic of conversation right now is how old Platt is while he's playing a high school student, but I didn't think that was the main issue because we see that all the time in this industry. The bigger problem is that his performance just often felt overdone and it gave us limited access to Evan's headspace, which made it even harder for me to accept the inciting incident, the decision he makes to lie, and then basically never makes it any better and never justifies the choices he makes as the story progresses.
Bill?
Yeah, ultimately it's kind of creepy, the decisions he makes. And maybe this worked on stage. I have to be honest and say I did not see the stage production, but I think it's going to disappoint those people. And I'm not sure it's going to bring anybody new to the equation. For me, it played like a long, sad episode of Glee.
Well, I saw the stage play and so did Justine. Justine, you chime in first. What did you think?
Well, the premise of the play is predicated on a pretty grim lie. And through another lens, this could be considered the talented Mr. Ripley with ballads. And that issue isn't addressed much in the film, and it becomes further magnified. Some shows rely on audience interaction and that intimacy and just weren't meant for the big screen. And I really think that's the case here.
I thought the stage play was great. And even though the movie is not as good as the Broadway show, I think it's good enough. I'm thrilled that they cast Ben Platt in this. The age thing didn't bother me at all because it was such an amazing performance on stage. It's great to see him in the movie. I think the supporting cast, which was not in the play, Julianne Moore, Amy Adams, and Amanda Stenberg are terrific. And this is not a frivolous musical. This really has something to say. And I say, if you haven't seen the Broadway show, here's a great opportunity to see it. And if you have, here's a great opportunity to see it again in a completely different form. All right, moving on. Bill, tell us about a movie called Best Sellers.
Well, boozy Michael Caine is going on a road trip with uptight Aubrey Plaza. He's a washed-up, perhaps, author. She's an up-and-coming publisher who's kind of inherited her father's publishing company. Like every movie these days, a viral video gets out and helps and hurts the chances for the publishing house being saved and for Michael Caine's career turning around. Michael Caine made a career a long time ago of making just about any movie that was put in front of him, and that's what this feels like. It's not great. It's trying to be on the fence between an indie and a big budget Hollywood movie, and it's really neither. It's a weird hybrid, and I can't recommend Bestseller.
Well, I think its saving grace is that Aubrey Plaza really elevates the material. She shows her depth of range, commands the screen, and proves that it's really time for her to move from some of the supporting roles she's been relegated to maybe carrying her own projects. This is from actor turned director Alina Rossler. It's her feature debut, and you could see that influences the way she directs actors. It's very performance driven, dialogue heavy, and sometimes you just need to watch something that's low stakes and quaint, and the publishing world isn't one we've seen done to death on screen. So getting an inside view of that struggle, for authors to stay relevant, I found it quite enjoyable.
Perry?
I guess the only thing I really found enjoyable was some of the chemistry between Michael Caine and Aubrey Plaza. This would be a hard pass for me without the two of them, but it's even hard to recommend with solid performances from them because this whole thing feels so familiar and predictable. Like, I even feel like we've covered similar movies on this show in recent months. So this one just didn't have much to offer. Like, yeah, it tries to say something about celebrity culture and the publishing realm, but it is just like very thin and surface level type stuff. So ultimately, I found myself thinking, what was the point? I would never watch that again, and I probably wouldn't recommend it.
It's very predictable and you could see where it's going, but I don't think that really matters because what this is an actor showcase. Michael Caine can elevate any script that he's in, and I think he elevates the material, and I think he has good chemistry with Aubrey Plaza. And it's great to see Aubrey Plaza not playing one of these aloof hipster characters like she usually does. She plays it straight here. So I say for the performances, it's worth a look. For the story's thin, but they bring it to another level.
There's a later movie where we're going to use that idea of an actor showcase, and I think it's going to apply very well. And then you're going to go back and you're going to say, but not bestsellers.
Justine, there's a movie out called Annette. Let's hear about it.
Well, this is a rock opera from French filmmaker Leo Carax. It centers on a stand-up comedian played by Adam Driver who falls in love with an opera singer portrayed by Marion Cotillard. The two become a much-loved power couple, but when they welcome their first child, Annette, a mysterious and otherworldly little girl, their lives take a striking turn. This music was developed by the Sparks Brothers. They were recently chronicled in Edgar Wright's celebrated documentary, and the concept actually began as an album before it was a script, and that's why this feels much more like a performance art piece than a traditional narrative film. I've certainly never seen anything like it, and it entertains despite its message and plot lines being wildly interpretable, but I think it has a lot to say, however uniquely, about the entertainment industry, predatory men in the spotlight, and I recommend just for the wild journey that it is.
This is one of the worst movies, not only of the year, but maybe of the last 10 or 15 years. Adam Driver waited 8 years to make this thing, and Marion Cotillard is acting like she's really an opera singer in an important movie. Annette is short for marionette because that's what the kid is. I'm sorry if that's a spoiler. I don't want anyone to see this.
Harry?
I'm a little more mixed on it, I think, than you guys. So I would have liked a little more thematic clarity in the end and maybe a tighter script overall. But one of my favorite things is when I can look at a movie and say, this movie isn't quite for me, or I wouldn't think it would be for me, but it opened me up to like surprisingly dazzling creative choices that I got kind of swept up in. I didn't love the whole thing. It is very long and it is a commitment, but I kind of enjoyed the creative swings they took with this.
It is an avant-garde musical, romantic drama, rock opera. It is overly ambitious, but it is self-indulgent. I mean, the whole thing it just doesn't gel for me. I mean, I give the guy credit for trying to do something different. I mean, there's a song, for example, called We Love Each Other So Much. And they just keep saying this stuff, we love each other so much. I'd rather see chemistry between the characters and have that exemplified on screen than hearing them say that over and over and over again. That said, he's a stand-up comic. The audience howls with laughter when he performs, and none of this material is funny. McCuddy and I were talking about what did you say, Billy? You said that it was really The way
Well,
he's
not everything that happens on the stage in this movie is going on in their heads, the performers' heads. That's an interesting idea. None of the material that he's doing on stage is his actual act. It's what he's thinking. And also what he's wearing isn't what he wears. Marion Cotillard is in the middle of an opera and she walks into a field. This is all what's happening in her head. That's the one interesting idea in this whole thing. But otherwise, we're giving it way too much attention. I hope you didn't sit down recently, Neil, and talk to one of the stars of the film.
You know, I actually spoke to Marion Cotillard and here's what on Zoom, and here's what she had to say about her performance in the movie. Tell me about your chemistry with Adam Driver. What was that like?
It was such an intense and amazing experience because we were both, I mean, we're not singers. So we were both facing anxiety. Like it was like really stressful to sing live. So we had this connection of like two kids in the playground being like, oh my God, we're gonna like experience things that we have never experienced before. So it created this connection. And this project was so special because it's all live singing. So it's an experience that I had never had, and I always look for facing the unknown and like just dive in the unknown.
The Voyeurs is the name of a new thriller about a young couple spying on the provocative activities of another couple who lives across the way. Let's take a look.
Oh, check out those two. What is he, like a photographer or something?
It looks like it. Wow. You can see right in.
Yeah, it's a nice play. Oh, kissy kissy. Oh, they're in love.
Thomas.
That is happening.
Thomas.
What?
I don't think we should spy on our neighbors.
Perry, tell us about The Voyeurs.
So it stars Sydney Sweeney and Justin Smith as that young couple. They're getting their first apartment together. They're super excited about it. And then they're just completely taken by that couple in the apartment the other way, like across from them, that they can't stop spying on. And it's basically how that experience makes their relationship just spiral entirely out of control. And, you know, I was very into it for the most part. I feel like the first half of this movie almost has, you know, a somewhat grounded quality to it where I'm thinking maybe this really is a good modern Rear Window, but then it basically takes it up to an 11 and the movie becomes something different. And while I don't necessarily think it works and comes together all that well, like, I'm not gonna lie, I was super entertained by it all and I would watch this again in a heartbeat.
Bill?
This is a bad Brian De Palma movie, which sounds like an oxymoron. I think that what it does late in the second act, the twist you're alluding to, is so ludicrous and unbelievable. And you didn't mention that it's basically like an old Cinemax softcore porn film. I think that this actress deserves better. She was in White Lotus. She's in The Handmaid's Tale. But this is...
She's a rising star, Bill.
Please, please, please look away.
Justine.
The words you're looking for, Bill, are erotic thriller. This has everything you need. It is the equivalent of a trashy novel you buy at the airport. It entertains you in the moment, and then you never have to think about it again. Even when the plot falls into these ravines that are completely implausible, you're already in, you're on board.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's trashy fun, and if you can easily pick it apart. But if you want to just go along for the ride, you summed it up perfectly, Justine. It is like a trashy novel, and on that level, pun intended, it's watchable. And Sydney Sweeney, as I mentioned before, is a rising star, and she elevates the thing to an extent. So if this is your thing, like Perry loves this kind of thing, I would say you might want to check it out. I thought it was okay if you overlook the plot holes. Justine, there's a new movie called Small Engine Repair. Tell us about it.
Well, this focuses on an ex-con trying to find his way back to normalcy. He's working at a garage in New Hampshire, and he's also struggling to provide for his daughter. He's had a falling out with two lifelong best friends, and one night he lures them to the garage under the guise of reconciliation, but it quickly becomes clear something more sinister, more complex is going on. This was written and directed by John Polano. He also stars in the film. It's based on a play of his, so it's very much performance driven. But that actually proves to be a disadvantage because it often feels like the characters are playing to an audience that isn't there in this exaggerated fashion. And then other times it does feel realistic and intimate, but it drowns in its characters' toxic masculinity, sexism, homophobia, making it really difficult to care about their journeys.
Bill?
Well, the problem really here is that he thinks he's done American Buffalo, and he's not David Mamet. He's not Kenneth Lonergan, despite the Manchester location. And he's not even Ed Burns light. I mean, the problem is Neil Rosen and I used to go to screenings together, and I would sit next to him if there was no place else to sit. And I would lean over to him 5 minutes, 10 minutes, sometimes as late as 20 minutes into a movie and go, now we got a movie. The problem with this movie is it's an hour and 5 minutes of BS backstory before we get to what really happens. I'll tell you what the short movie is, or the shorter play version of this was. It started with a drug dealer showing up at a garage. That happens almost 80 minutes into this thing. I can't recommend it because the bromance wannabe, what it tries to think it is, doesn't come across.
Perry?
This is actually what I was referring to before when you brought up the concept of an ensemble piece, or something where the ensemble really shines. Because when we were talking about bestsellers, all I could think about was how Michael Caine and Aubrey Plaza are being boxed into a weaker script. Their heads are hitting the ceiling. In this particular case, I think they kind of break through that ceiling and wind up elevating what's on the page. And I'm not saying all of it works. I don't think it all comes together. And there are very clearly certain beats in this that play better than others. But ultimately, in the end, I am glad I saw it because we've got a whole bunch of actor showcases here, and they're pretty impressive.
Yeah, the acting is quite good across the board, particularly, and I'm a fan of him from The Walking Dead, is John Bernthal. I think that this is, like you said, Perry, this is an actor's showcase. And writer, director, and star John Polano, I think, nicely adapts his play to the screen. And the big twist here, which I won't reveal, no spoilers, the whole film is absorbing. It's realistic dialogue. It's a bromance from in New Hampshire. And overall, I think the thing leaves a really lasting impression. And what you're talking about, Bill, the end, I think the end brings it all together. I mean, I was kind of like looking at this and like wow, it really kind of got me. Well, I don't agree, but you're certainly entitled to your opinion. I think it's worth a look. Bill, there's a new documentary called Val. Tell us about it.
Well, it's about Val Kilmer. One of the most interesting things he did in his career, besides play Batman and The Saint and a lot of other things, is he brought a video camera with him back in the days when nobody even knew what a video camera was. And he has tens of thousands of hours of footage that he shot over and over and over. Auditions for Oliver Stone that he didn't get, for things he didn't get.
Goodfellas. He auditioned for Scorsese in Goodfellas.
Auditioned for Stanley Kubrick and didn't get it. And he's got all of this footage. He's got Kevin Bacon and Sean Penn's butts, by the way. But he also got throat cancer. And what happened, because he's a Christian Scientist and didn't seek treatment immediately, is that he speaks very difficultly through a small opening in his throat. His son Jack, therefore, does a great deal of the narrating. And this is a love letter from Val Kilmer, basically to Val Kilmer, meaning that it's a little too personal and has a lot more information in it than some people may want to seek out. It also doesn't have anybody else's opinion. It just has Val Kilmer's. So we don't get whether he really was difficult, as it was rumored. We don't know a lot of things because this is just his POV. All of that said, nobody else has a trove like this. And if you're a fan, you don't want to miss it.
Yeah, it's a treasure trove of footage, the behind the scenes of the Doors. And, he hated doing Batman, which was very interesting also because he said it was, Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey that stole the movie. And he just said, I'm just in this stupid rubber suit. He couldn't stand it. And he turns down a lucrative 4-picture deal to be Batman for the next 4 Batmans or something like that. There's all this backstage footage. I found it very, very interesting. Perry?
Yeah, I was really struck by how warm and raw it was because, I hate admitting this, but it's a little too easy to forget that the folks that we admire on screen are human beings that go through some really trying things and have, deep personal opinions about how they approach their art. So getting the opportunity to get a real intimate look at a star like Val Kilmer's experience, we rarely get that. So I kind of appreciate that he used that footage and this documentary to open up the door to all of us to go through that experience with him.
Justine?
I mean, this definitely takes a lot of inspiration from Listen to Me, Marlon, the documentary about Marlon Brando. But the difference here, as Bill pointed out, is that film didn't shy away from the actor's demons and missteps. And here, you know, Kilmer's seen through a largely empathetic, purified lens. The public issues in his personal life are paved over. His questionable behavior on set isn't really addressed authentically. But that said, of course, this is a striking portrait of the life of an actor. I think anyone wanting to get into the industry in that way will find this so interesting. The ups and downs that it portrays are really impactful. And all of that footage, really, for any film fan, it really is a treasure trove.
You know, I interviewed this guy years ago and he was like on another planet. He was completely incomprehensible and I didn't really like the guy. I liked his performances, but I didn't like him. Now I like him and I have a lot of, I look at him completely differently, what he's going through with the throat cancer and the dedication to his craft that you see throughout the film.
I got a call this morning saying that you wanted to meet.
Well, Jimmy sent you against my wishes. Good luck with your career, honey.
So cool they let you move into a cheesecake factory.
Is that where you wait tables? That seems like a better fit.
I'd rather sling bang bang chicken and shrimp all day than work here, you classist monster.
We can start early tomorrow.
That was a clip from the TV series Hacks. It's Justine Browning's personal choice as we go around the panel with our Critics' Picks of the Month. Justine.
Yeah, well, Jean Smart stars in this as a fading comedian, very much inspired by Joan Rivers, who's performing a Vegas act. Her act is completely starting to fall stale and basically teams with this disgraced writer played by Hannah Einbinder to revive her act, to try to make her more relevant. And what follows is this really touching relationship. The dialogue is so incredibly whip smart and cutting, and the ways in which the actors play off one another is so entertaining and enthralling. And I can't recommend this show enough.
This is one of the best new shows out there. I think Jean Smart might be the best performance she ever gives in her career. Hannah Einbinder, who happens to be Lorraine Newman's daughter in real life, I think she's terrific. I think their chemistry is great, and the comedic moments work, and so do the dramatic ones. Bill?
Yeah, I think it works really, really well. I've only seen the first one, but I really appreciate that you turned me on to it because I am friendly with Elaine Boozler, whom Jean Smart told me recently. She, as much as she likes Joan Rivers and some of the other people, it was Boozler that she was patterning a lot of her routine after. And so I'm hooked. I want to see more.
Bill, what is your Critics' Pick this month?
Well, I've gone to this new service called Netflix. I don't know if you've heard of it. For a season of 9 episodes, something called Hit and Run. Of course, it's not from this country, although it features New York a little bit. When a woman dancer is run down by a car in Tel Aviv, her husband, a tour guide, goes looking for answers in New York. The trouble is, she was never just a dancer, and he was always more than a tour guide. It's an international cast. It's a great action thriller, a little maybe erotic thrill in there, and there's more to come after this 9. So please, please, please seek out Hit and Run.
And it's by the same people who did the hit TV series in Israel called Fauda. So if you like that, check this out. Perry, what do you got this month? What's your pick?
So strange, Bill. My pick actually is on that obscure streaming service called Netflix too. Who would have thunk? I'm doing Brand New Cherry Flavor, and warning up top, this is not a show that you can easily boil down to a quick synopsis. So just know whatever I'm about to say, it is so much more than that. Stars Rosa Salazar as an aspiring filmmaker who thinks she gets the ultimate opportunity in LA to direct her very first feature film. But then the producer basically pulls the rug out from under her. And so she decides to put a curse on him. I have truly never seen anything like Brand New Cherry Flavor before. It is very extreme. Sometimes it's grotesque, but I just couldn't take my eyes off of this thing because it's all so beautifully captured. And also, I was just so captivated by the whole mystery unfolding here and just learning more about the supernatural rules in play. And I also can't emphasize this enough. Rosa Salazar is phenomenal in this series. And she's also just a downright incredible actor overall who deserves to be even more well-known than she already is right now.
Perry, it sounds like Promising Young Woman if she was a witch. Is that at all close?
I think I see what you're going for, but I don't think that this show is very easily compared to anything else in existence.
Listen, I know you love horror, Perry. So would you, and you're very excited about this. Would you say this is one of the best horror things you've ever seen?
Ever feels like a big designation,
Yeah.
but it is one of the absolute best things I've seen in 2021.
My pick is McCartney 321, which is a fascinating new 6-part miniseries on Hulu that features Sir Paul being interviewed by producer Rick Rubin. The topic is strictly music. There's no gossipy stuff here, as McCartney breaks down many of his legendary songs, while Rubin isolates bass, piano, voice, and orchestral tracks from famed Beatle tunes, as well as Paul's solo career. It's a real masterclass on McCartney's creative process, as we see how these brilliant songs were put together. I also found it interesting to learn about McCartney's contributions to some Beatles songs that I would have attributed solely to John Lennon. There's also a lot of anecdotal and factual information about this iconic music that was never revealed before in thousands of previous interviews that Paul's done. I'm a big Beatles fan, and before watching this, I thought I wouldn't learn anything new, and I was wrong. And in the process, pleasantly surprised. So is this worth a look for Beatle fans? I say overwhelmingly, yeah. Well, that's all the time we have. With any luck, we've given you some movies and TV shows to watch. I want to thank Perry Nemiroff, Bill McCuddy, and Justine Browning. I'm Neil Rosen. Join us next time on Talking Pictures.